So welcome to WildXChange, which is weekly insight, listening, and dialogue across campus. We do this every Friday at noon, and we're really excited this week to welcome Annie Flood to the conversation. Annie Flood is a Paralympian and a gold medalist just recently from Tokyo in September. So we're here to hear her story. And just as an overall background, this conversation is usually brought to you by athletics, but this year we've switched things up a little bit and we've got a few grad students who are going to lead. So next week will be Andy Starkle and Keaton Wood leading a conversation. And then after that, we will also have clubs across campus and our student athlete advisory committee leading conversations too. So with that, I'll hand it over to Natalie.
Thanks, Jane, and welcome everybody. Happy Friday. We're so glad you're here. And Annie, we can't thank you enough for joining us, especially kind of last minute when I reached out to you, but I was super excited that you were available to join us. I thought we would just start by, you had a little bit of a different start to your first semester at Linfield than most of our freshmen. Can you kind of tell us about the journey in Tokyo and like how long were you there and just what that experience was like? Because I know it was a little bit funky with COVID, and so would love to just share about that experience in Tokyo.
Yeah, well, first, I'm super excited to be here. I appreciate you guys having me. But yeah, I mean, I have been playing sitting volleyball for quite a while now, and Tokyo was kind of always, my goal. But my senior year of high school, I moved to Oklahoma to train, and that was kind of going to better my chances of making the roster for the games. And as the roster got closer, it came out in July, and I was not on the original roster, which is really hard. But I mean, I'm really young, so that happens. But I came back home and I moved into my dorm here at Linfield and kind of started what I thought was going to be my first kind of normal year as just a student. And then some crazy stuff happened with my team, and 2 spots opened up on the roster, and I was chosen for one of them. And I had to immediately leave my dorm and go back home and quarantine. And then 4 days later, after I got the call, I left for Tokyo. So that was a very crazy start to my freshman year, but I was there for about 2 weeks in Tokyo and just got back and immediately started school. So it's been very crazy and very different, not a very traditional start to a freshman year. But.
Yeah, totally worth it though, because you got the gold medal. You said you had it, so we would love to see it if you want to break it down. I'm always curious about like the logistics of like you get the medal, then like what do you do with it? Like do you like put it in a suitcase? Like how, and like do you wear it the whole time? How did you navigate that?
So when we got them, I mean, first of all, it was a lot heavier than I was expecting it to be, but it's very bright. But this is the medal. I had previously won gold at a smaller tournament in Japan in 2019, and I obviously had the medal from it, and this is very different from that. I feel like this is like the real deal, but yeah, it's amazing. I haven't really figured out where I'm gonna store it, but
that's a real goal.
This is it, and it's like my baby. But yeah, when we got it, it was just a very surreal feeling of like I actually made it, I actually did it. So yeah. I'm very
what was the competition like? Was there like how often were you playing? Was it pretty intense, I would guess?
Yeah, so we typically for tournaments like this, I mean, this is the biggest tournament there is for us, but typically we would have gotten there 2 weeks beforehand and kind of acclimated to everything. And but because of everything that happened with COVID, like I mentioned before, we only got there 2 or 3 days before our first competition, which is just crazy. So we started playing on the 28th, I believe, and we got there on the 26th. So after that day, after the 28th, we played every other day. And we had, I think, 5 games. So yeah, we had pool play and we had 3 games of pool play, and then the semis and the finals. So we really went right into it, and then practice on our off days. But yeah.
Yeah. Was gold always kind of the mission when the team left?
Yeah, I mean,
Everyone.
our team was I guess the reigning champions, you could say.
Okay.
We won gold in Rio. I wasn't obviously at that games, but I joined the team right after. So gold was our goal. Our biggest competition at the time in the past quad has been Russia, and because they weren't in Rio in 2016, but we played China in that gold medal match in Rio. So China and Russia were kind of the 2 teams we were looking to play our best in, and it ended up being China was our strongest competitor at the games. So it was it was not an easy tournament. It was not an easy win at all. We definitely were fighting the whole time, every single game, and every win was so sweet because we knew we gave everything we had to each specific game. So
yeah. And was there a lot of adjustment as far as sleep? I know it's totally different as far as time zone. Was that tough? And were you guys still practicing on your off days? What did that look like?
Yeah, so the time difference was 17 hours from the West Coast, which was the biggest I'd been to Japan before, but that was the biggest time change I've ever experienced. It was really difficult going there. It was harder coming back, which was good because I didn't have, the most important games of my life to be competing in. But going there, I pretty much would just wake up in the middle of the night and then be kind of tired throughout the day. But yeah, we would practice on the days we had off. But our game days were very, it was the way they kind of formatted it was very good for us because we kind of got to relax those days before our game and just kind of collect ourselves. And but we definitely did not have a lot of downtime, we didn't have days where we weren't practicing pretty much, which I think was good for us because we do best when we are so into it and, practicing all the time and just always surrounded by the sport. So.
Yeah. And you mentioned that you're kind of young. Were you kind of one of the younger players on the team?
Yeah. So I'm the youngest on the team. For the roster, I was the youngest, and then the next oldest was a couple years older than me. So.
Yeah. Wow. That must have been pretty intense as well. So kind of going back, and you're originally from Salem, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, and I'll drop in the chat too. Kate Walkup, one of our student athletes, wrote a really great article about you in the Linfield Review. But I would love to kind of go back to growing up in Salem, and did you were sports always just something your family was doing, or how did you kind of get into sports? And I know obviously with the adjustments, I know you didn't discover sitting volleyball right away, right?
Yeah, so I started playing sports as early as most people do. I was really young. I played soccer for 10 years. I really loved soccer, but it was hard on my leg, all the running. It's just not an easy sport to do when you are not a big runner. And so I stopped playing soccer when I got to middle school, and I started playing volleyball in my 7th grade year. So my oldest sister had been on the volleyball team in high school, and she really liked it. It wasn't super serious. She only played for a couple years. So she said, just try it. And it's really fun. I think you could love it. So I tried it. And I was a really athletic kid. I was just like every other 12-year-old, whatever. I loved sports. I wanted to try new things, but it was definitely difficult to find a sport that was best fit for my disability. So volleyball was a great fit. It wasn't a ton of running, but I still felt like I was able to keep up with the other kids. And then I, found sitting volleyball a couple years later and found that was really my passion. So yeah, volleyball was somewhat new to me when I found sitting volleyball, but as soon as I found it, I knew that was something that I could really love forever.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Jane, I see you got your hand. What do you, go ahead, go for it.
Yeah, actually going back to the Olympic experience for a second, I just was curious about the coaching staff. Was it the same coaches that had coached in Rio, or is it a new rotation? And how did you, what was that experience like for you? Did you know these coaches? Had you worked with them before? How did that bring the team together? Yeah, just what was that experience?
Yeah, so our head coach, he's been the same for I think almost 10 years or longer. Than he's been there forever pretty much, but he's great. And it's kind of been the same group of girls of athletes for a long time too. So we're a really close group of people, and we understand how each other plays, and so that was really nice too. It wasn't a new scene at all. There were a couple of assistant coaches that weren't in Rio or had just joined or whatever, but for the most part, it was a very similar coaching staff and coaching style, which is always nice. So
yeah, that's great. So I had a ton of other questions too. There's so much. How so I like that you in the article talks about kind of how you never really dwelled on your disability, and it was kind of just like another thing, and another obstacle to overcome, just like every other athlete who has obstacles to overcome. And I think that's super inspiring. And did you was there any did you have a hard time with transitioning to sitting volleyball, or just like kind of mentally with going from, and I guess you were like playing for your school and then playing more with a club, I would guess is how that would work, or was that kind of a difficult transition, or did you do, I think you might have done both, or?
Yeah, sitting volleyball, I always say it's a completely different sport than standing volleyball.
Yeah.
But when I first started, I had never really done much with Paralympic sports, Paralympic movement. I didn't really know much about it. So the mental side of it was really hard, because I kind of had to let myself realize that I'm not playing a lesser sport. I'm playing an extremely, you have to be very good at these sports to play them. It's not, it's definitely not a sport for everyone. It's very, very difficult, very physically demanding too. So when I started playing sitting, it was very different than what I was used to. I was used to being able to run and jump in volleyball, and you can't obviously do that in sitting. So it was very hard on my body and hard on my mind to kind of transition to that sport. But once I let go of all of my insecurities in that situation, I grew an appreciation for Paralympic sports that I don't really know if you can have if you're not experiencing that. Because playing an able-bodied sport and Paralympic sport they're very different. So you kind of have to have different mindsets for both. But yeah, I played standing through my sophomore year of high school.
Yeah.
So I was doing both for a little over 2 years, and that was really difficult to have to go back and forth and dedicate everything to each sport at the same time.
Yeah, and I'm sure very different teammates and very different dynamics there too, for sure. Debbie, you had a question? Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, Annie. Are you able to keep playing? Are there leagues around here, or are you going to be able to keep that up even though you're going to school in Oregon and you were doing training in Oklahoma?
Yeah, so sitting volleyball is a very, there's not a big outreach. There's not a lot of programs outside of the national team, and there is a development team in Oklahoma. Both of the men and women's national team and the development team are all located in Edmond, Oklahoma. So there's not a lot outside of that. You'll sometimes find I think Pacific Northwest, their disabled program has clinics every once in a while at Nike, but other than that, there's not really teams. There's not really a club team you can join, because it's just such a small sport in the US. So my training here is basically on my own, and sometimes I could find some friends to toss balls for me or pass with me, but it's very self-instructed here. It's you won't really find a lot of people who understand the sport, which is the hardest part.
Yeah, I can imagine that would be really tough. It makes me want to like get us like a team together so we can like have you just like a team of people to play with, even though
That would be
we would
great.
probably be horrible at it, but we could try, you know. Kenna, I see you had a question too. Go for it.
Hi, sorry, I was originally in Starbucks and then I moved because I knew it would be too loud if I asked a question in there. But hi, Annie, I had a question kind of tied back to one of the earlier talking points about like finding the sport. Did you have any, it could be with sitting volleyball or any other sport. Did you have any like inspirations or Paralympic athletes that you looked up to? Just because like for me, I'm only learning about more Paralympians now and could only think of like Scout Bassett as a prominent athlete. But I was just curious if you had anybody in particular that you looked up to.
Yeah, so growing up, I was super involved in Challenged Athletes Foundation, which is a organization where they basically provide grants to disabled athletes for, mostly mine were for prosthetic legs to help, you know, if I wanted a running leg or a walking leg, you know, whatever I needed. But they also did travel grants and training grants. So most of the people I met were through Challenged Athletes Foundation. But I didn't know about a lot of Paralympic athletes until I joined Sitting Volleyball. Scout Bassett was one of the people who I knew through Challenged Athletes Foundation. She helped me kind of learn how to run, which was cool when I was younger. But when I started finding out about these athletes, it was mostly my own teammates who have become some of my closest friends today. But when I found Sitting Volleyball, I was at a summer camp in Ohio, and a couple of my teammates were there. And someone I'll always mention, she's a huge advocate for the Paralympic movement and just for us women on the team. Her name's Katie Holloway. She's our captain. She's been one of my idols and someone I've always looked up to, and she's just been a great role model for me and other athletes, able-bodied and disabled. But she has the same disability as me. And so she's been someone I've always looked to for guidance and advice and stuff. But yeah, I mean, there's the girls on my team have really taken on the role of my mom and my big sisters, and they've been amazing. So I really do look up to everyone on my team, and I'll always say those girls are the people I look up to most. But yeah.
Yeah, that's a great one. Yeah, Jane.
Sorry, I keep unmuting. Annie, this is so great to hear. And I love hearing that you had, like, they're advocates for Paralympic sports and getting the word out. And I think we can come back to that piece too. But one of the questions that immediately came to mind when you described what you just experienced is that post-Olympic feeling, right? Like, did you experience any of the blues, any of the post-Olympic blues, or has it just been so freaking thrilling here at Linfield that you're just like, yes? Yeah, has it been, do you feel any sort of wave of emotions having this experience over for now?
Yeah, I mean, I've been very blessed. I definitely did not have to come home to a sad environment. I mean, I've had so much fun already here, and I've met so many cool people. So I definitely had it better than most of my teammates, but it was definitely sad. I mean, I experienced a lot of post-Tokyo sadness is what people have been calling it. And I had heard about, people experiencing that after Rio, and Rio was such an incredible games for my teammates from what I've heard. So I didn't necessarily know if I was expecting that, but I definitely experienced that. I mean, coming back after the best moment in my life and the coolest experience I've had so far, it was really hard. I mean, it was really sad. And I also spent, every single day, pretty much every waking moment with this group of girls. So being away from them was also hard too. I mean, I'd grown really close to them in the short time I was there with them. But I mean, everything has to come to an end at some point. So I knew I couldn't just be sad about it forever. I had to kind of move on and be excited about other things. And so I've definitely, found that excitement here, which has been I've been very lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's only 3 years until the next round. So
Yeah.
it's not as long. That's what we were able to go to the Olympic trials down in Eugene and take students. And that was the one thing that it's like, if, I feel like that's kind of the worst experience to be like, when you take the top 3 and you're 4th, and it's like, oh, it's so heartbreaking to see those athletes. But I was like, well, it's at least now it's only 3 years that you have to wait until instead of 4. But it's really tough. Doug, what you got? And then Debbie.
I just want to share that I tried to watch it on TV. I watched some of but the volleyball never shown for some reason the games. But I guess my question is, is there links or video that we could watch so we can see it? I think we kind of need for our students to kind of be exposed to watching some of these Olympic games. And I'd love to watch you guys play. Is there something like that where we can have access to?
Yeah, so our coverage was definitely better this games than it has been in the past, but it's still not enough. The Paralympics are still not covered enough, and it's getting better. But someday, hopefully, everyone will be able to turn on their TV and see any Paralympic sport they want. But there are links. I mean, our game was streamed. It's on YouTube. I can, send a link, but I mean, that gold medal match was, the best I've ever seen my team play. So yeah, I think, it's every time I watch the like last couple points in the set, I cry because it's like, it was so amazing. But yeah, I'll definitely share that with you all. Because it was such a cool experience, and it really is just a great game. So.
Yeah.
One more comment, if I could.
Yeah.
Well, Annie's 2 older sisters went to Linfield as well, Maggie and Lindsay. And I remember before they left, they had mentioned that my younger sister's come to Linfield, and she's the toughest of all of us. I just wanted to share that. So.
Oh, they are funny. They are some of my biggest supporters, my sisters. I do not know how I got so lucky to have not just like good older sisters, but like good friends. They're just some of my biggest supporters, and doing whatever they can to advocate for me and my teammates. And they watched all the games, and they do the most for me, and they're the best.
Are you the youngest, Annie?
Yeah, I'm 4 years between me and my middle sister, Lindsay, and then 7 years between me and my oldest sister. But we're all best friends, so I got very lucky.
Yeah. Go ahead, Deb.
Yeah, several of us are very big fans of the whole Flood family on here. So many of us know some of them. Jeff, I think, knows your dad and or uncle and your aunt. So Annie, I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about how you feel like this time was different because of the COVID situation. Like, I think you were telling me a little bit about, there were really strict rules about when you had to leave the Olympic Village. Just, in what ways do you feel like you still got the regular experience, and in what ways was it sort of, could you feel the difference because of the pandemic?
Yeah, so basically what I've heard from Rio was, some of my teammates' favorite part of it, other than like playing and winning, was meeting people and talking to people and trading pins, which was something we got to do. And so that was kind of one of my worries going into it, was that I wasn't going to get to have that social aspect of meeting all of these athletes. And so my teammates were great, and they said, we're going to make this experience as amazing as we can. But COVID was very, very prevalent in the village. You could definitely tell that there were restrictions everywhere, and we were wearing a mask everywhere. In the apartments, anytime you needed to be wearing a mask, you were wearing a mask. And then we COVID tested every morning. We sat in the dining hall with barriers in between each, like every seat had a barrier around it. So that was kind of hard. You didn't really get to interact during those off times where you could kind of relax. But I don't think that I had a lesser experience because of COVID. I just think it was different. But every game is different. COVID or not, this games would have been very different from Rio and is going to be very different than Paris. So I had an amazing time, and it's also cool that I get to say that I did this during COVID and during a pandemic, and we were safe and healthy and did what we needed to do to go and then be able to compete and win. So.
Great. Yeah. And your parents also, like your family wasn't able to go, right?
Yeah, that was hard. There was no spectators. The arena was pretty quiet. There were still a lot of volunteers and stuff watching, which was nice, but it would have been a very different experience if we were able to have people that who we love and who love us able to like watch us win. That would have been really cool. But
yeah, and I remember in the article it talks about kind of the blessing in disguise was the fact that you were able to go to Oklahoma, and since you were doing school online anyways, that you were able to kind of do that from Oklahoma and train. So kind of at least a little bit of a silver lining with that. So that's great. I'm wondering too if you can talk more just about your experience. I mean, I think it's one of those things that in our culture we don't talk about enough in our society about disabled athletes, in general disabled people, and kind of having that weird kind of where it's not necessarily a visible disability, and I think that's becoming more talked about too. But just your experience, obviously, in growing up you probably had friends that all knew you and knew that, but how does it just that transition now to college and talking to people about it, and are there advice you would give us as like how to talk about disabilities with people who may have them?
Yeah, I think growing up I couldn't really hide it. It was like a huge part of my identity and who I am, and I tried not to be ashamed of it, and my sisters didn't really let me be ashamed of it. They kind of just were like, no, you're going to be a normal girl and you have this thing and that's okay. So growing up with people like that around me who just embraced it and they didn't ignore it, and they didn't, we talked about it, and I learned to navigate it. But I think that's a huge thing is people are afraid to talk about it. And I'll always talk about my disability, and I'll always talk about the Paralympics, and I want to. It's not even like I feel like I have to. Like that's something I'm so passionate about. It's why I am who I am. So I don't think the conversation ever needs to stop. I think it's something that needs to be talked about, and attention needs to be brought to it. And that's the only way that the Paralympic movement's going to grow and get the recognition that it deserves and the appreciation. So I think there can always be more talk and more I don't like clinics and stuff where people can see the sport and streaming or watching these games, because it's not just a game. It's you're watching these amazing athletes who have overcome so much, compete at the highest level you can possibly compete in. So it's not like you're watching amazing athletes either way. So that's something that I also think is cool, is you can't watch these games and not think that this isn't amazing. I mean, it's so impressive. And but yeah, I think just talking about it and making people aware and showing people videos, and I think that's always something that we need more of. So just more advocacy for the sports.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you too. Like the more we talk about the differences and so many things in our society, and I think that's a really great point. It's like just not be afraid to talk about it, and yeah, I just really love that. And I think that's like you said, the only way to kind of make progress and get more visibility and around it and things like that. So that's awesome. Other questions? I know there's Jane. Yeah,
Jeff, go ahead.
Yeah, Annie, so you mentioned briefly Paris. So what are the next steps? What are tournaments sort of in between? Are those tournaments that as a student, a full-time student now, that you'll be able to still do? Are they summer tournaments? How is that going to navigate sort of, again, a path to Paris for you?
So in a typical quad after, COVID aside, there would have been a big tournament each year. So we would have had worlds and zonals and intercontinentals, I believe. So those would have been the 3 big tournaments that we would compete in. But because of COVID in the last quad, things just kept getting pushed off. So now they're trying, I don't know if these will continue to be pushed off, but they're trying to schedule these missed tournaments for this next quad. So we're gonna have a lot of tournaments pretty much. Which, I mean, I can't even say that I'd be on those rosters, you know, so it's hard to say that I'd be missing this much or these classes, but I try and just take things one step at a time and prepare as best as I can. But this next year, after the holidays and stuff, there should be a lot more, you know, smaller tournaments, and then those big tournaments that, you know, we didn't get to have. And then as Paris is approaching, things will get more intense, and I'll just have to, you know, take it one day at a time, one tournament at a time.
Thanks.
Awesome. I was going to say, just listening to you talk and going back to the Paris thing too, and you're like, these games are never the same. It wasn't a lesser experience. It was just a different experience, and Paris will be different too. And there's a lot of grit. Like, you have a lot of grit. So I'm curious what your experience is. I mean, you have to do most of your training on your own or self-directed, right? And then you're adapting to new situations, and it sounds like your mindset is really looking for how you can adapt rather than what's going to be the same, right? So tell us a little bit about mental toughness in your position. How have you maintained your mental game? And how do you maintain grit through your experience?
Well, I mean, after July, when I didn't make that roster, it was really, I mean, that hurt, and it was hard, and it was, you know, a huge letdown for me, especially after I'd moved to Oklahoma and trained. But anything can happen. I mean, you have to keep going, and you have to keep, you know, maintaining a good attitude and respecting your teammates and respecting your coaches, even when things like that happen. And because the reality of it is not every single person can make a roster. And that's hard to accept, especially when you feel like you've given so much and you've, you know, put so much towards something. But not every person can make the Paris roster. And there's a lot of us, and a lot of people who didn't get to go to Tokyo or were cheated out of the experience because of COVID. And they are going to come back stronger towards Paris. And so just because I was put on this last roster because of weird circumstances does not mean that I have a spot in Paris. Like, I mean, I have to come out even harder and stronger and, you know, kind of balance. I'm not in Oklahoma anymore, and I'm not training every single day there with my teammates. So you have to realize that if you're not, you know, 100% dedicated, things might not turn out, you know, the way that you want them to. And even if you are, it still might not turn out that way. So I kind of have to go in with a really, a mindset of like, anything can happen and things might not go my way. And that's going to be really unfortunate, but I have to keep pushing and giving everything I have, because that's the nature of the sport and that's the nature of the level we're at. So I guess my mindset is just to give as much as I possibly can, and always have a good attitude. You can always control your effort and your attitude, and that's something that no one else can change. So that's always been the way I've tried to think, especially when you're playing at such a high level. So yeah.
That's awesome. How
Yeah.
do you, if you're having a day where you're like, how do you get yourself out of a funk? What's your go-to like internal support or external support?
Well, if you think about like what you do, your everyday routine, why you're doing that, what your goal is, that is really what keeps me going, is knowing what my end goal is. All of those days that I had to wake up really early in Oklahoma and be alone and not want to be there. And I had a lot of days where I just didn't want to be there and I wanted to be back at home with my family and my friends. But every single day I went to practice every single day, and I woke up early, and then I did school because I wanted a gold medal. and because I wanted to be in Tokyo. And that worked for me. It ended up happening for me. And so I think having that, in the back of your mind, why you're doing what you're doing, like there's a reason that you're doing this. It's not just to, torment yourself. I wasn't doing that because I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to be in Oklahoma, but I wanted to win a gold medal, and I wanted to be becoming the best version of myself I could be. So, I did it, and I did the work, and I put in the work, and it turned out working. It turned out well, but sometimes it doesn't. So, I can't ever, take the chance of, well, this might not work out for me, so I'm just going to stop now. So yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of days where I have just thought I could stop right now and be done, and this is too much work, or it's too much. I miss my family. But then you're missing out on all of the opportunities that could come from that. So I think if I would have stopped, a year ago when I was in Oklahoma, I don't think I would be seeing any of the opportunities that I've, seen in the last month. So you always have to keep that in the back of your mind, that there's a reason you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah. Understanding kind of the sacrifices you have to make. It's really great. Kenna had another really great question, and she was wondering, and this is I'm curious too. So we've been talking a lot about name, image, and likeness around college athletes and their ability now to get paid to promote a brand or something like that. How have you navigated kind of sponsorships, and is that something that you've had to kind of work through? Do you have sponsorship offers? Is there different rules with now that, since you're not technically a collegiate athlete, but are you able to make some money?
Yeah, so when I was in high school playing, that was a big, I would have been, if the games would have been in 2020, I would have been going into my senior year after the games, and I could have possibly been playing volleyball. And there was that discussion of, okay, well, if I do win this money, can I still play high school volleyball? Am I a professional athlete in the same sport? Like, there's all of that conversation. Luckily, they deemed sitting volleyball and standing volleyball different sports. So I was able to still make money and be paid monthly for sitting volleyball and not have it affect my high school career. But I didn't even continue playing in high school, so it wasn't ever a problem anyways. But since I'm so new to the sport and I am so young, I haven't really had much experience. We have a sponsorship with Toyota, our team does. And so we, I've had to kind of navigate that and what that's like. And Toyota's been amazing. So they're just genuinely in support of us, which has been very nice. And yeah, so I mean, I will take it, as it comes to me and what is best for me and my team. We also have our contract with Adidas because our team is sponsored by Adidas. So, and that could change. We don't know who our sponsor could be for this next quad, if it's going to change. But yeah, there's a lot, and that's been really cool too, just to like have these, companies want to support us. Like, I mean, as they should. We're an amazing team, but I guess that's kind of cool to see these, big companies that you kind of have looked up to, growing up, especially athletic companies. So that's been really cool to see all these different people reaching out to us, wanting to support us and be there for us. So.
Yeah, and so you talked about getting money from, and that was basically from getting the gold medal, right? You get a certain amount for getting the gold medal, and that's not sponsorship related. That's more just the Paralympic committee, right?
Yeah. So this was the first. This is a huge. We could talk about this for hours, but the pay just became equal for Paralympics and the Olympics, which is huge for athletes, especially athletes who have been doing this for years. I mean, there's a girl on our team this is her 5th games. So finally now, after all of these years, getting equal pay has been huge. And that it wasn't like a couple of thousands of dollars. It was like a huge change in payment. So something that we should have been getting all along, but finally, you know, we've gotten that equal pay. But yeah, so I mean, it like winning the gold has been huge for our team in many ways, more than one. But yeah, you win different amounts for each medal, obviously, and then if you win, there's a lot of sports where you can win multiple. Track and field track, and then like swimming, you can win multiple medals, so you get paid per medal, which is super cool.
Yeah, that's really great. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up, Kenna, because that's definitely a question I would have had too, is just the marketing side of that. And we can definitely talk more about that if you want to talk more about interested in marketing, because it's, and I'm so with you, just in my experience, seeing just in like the past 10-15 years, the growth of the Paralympic movement, going from basically invisible to now a lot more. I mean, still a lot more to do, but still, you know, just the progress that's been made. And I think it's going to be, you know, just a matter of time before it's right up there with the Olympic Games and where it should, you know, where it should be. So that's really great. So so we talked a lot about your kind of athletics and your growing up, but I'm just curious, like, what do you like to do when you're not, you know, practicing or competing, and like what are some of your interests? Like, are you into music, or do you have like favorite TV show? I'm just kind of curious, like what your interests are outside of volleyball.
Yeah, I mean, especially being away for so long, I've realized how much I like genuinely love my family and my friends, and just being around them. I mean, and that could be doing whatever. I love just spending time with my people. And so being here with my best friend as my roommate has been amazing. Like that's like one of my favorite things to do, is just hang out with her. Yeah. But like spending time with my sisters is something that I cherish so much. My oldest sister is engaged, and so I've been like kind of planning her wedding, and that's been so fun. And that's just like one of my biggest, you know, passions in life, is just like my family and my friends. And so I love that. And then I love music, and I come from a very musical family, so we sing a lot, and we watch. I would grow up, like, we'd watch a lot of shows together, which is something that I think I'm definitely gonna take with me in my life, and those kind of traditions. But yeah, I just love like spending quality time with people, especially when you don't get to do that all the time, or when I was away, I like would come back and be so thankful that I got to spend that time with them. And then I also love my dogs. I have 3 dogs, and I love them so much. So those are some of my passions.
Yes, I love it. Yeah. What up, Doug? What do you got?
Annie, how's your Japanese? I know your dad teaches Japanese at North Salem. How is the language back in Japan? Do you know Japanese?
Well, one of the opportunities I got when I moved to Oklahoma, I was able to take his class, because I went to South Salem High School, and he teaches and coaches at North Salem. So I was never obviously able to take any of his classes, and he is a Japanese teacher at North. But I was able to take his class online and like be his student, which was super cool. So I took his class for a semester, and I mean, I feel like I learned quite a bit for only taking it, you know, for one semester, and it was super condensed because of the layout of school, school was back then. So I learned a little bit of Japanese, and actually used it a lot in Japan, which was funny because we didn't really have a lot of interaction with like the outside world outside of the village. But I would go to like a game, and there would be volunteers there, and they'd be, you know, trying to speak to us in English. And I would say just like a short sentence, like something, you know, very little that I knew in Japanese. And they'd be like, why do you know that? But no, he taught me a lot. And he actually came with my team in 2019 to Japan and was kind of like a translator for us, which was cool. So I've learned a lot of Japanese for how little I've like been taught. But I think I want to take Japanese maybe here and learn more, because it's just such a cool culture, and the language is amazing. And I've been to Japan twice now, and each time I've just I've loved everything about it. So yeah, it's been a very interesting language to try and learn.
Yes, yes, our international office loves hearing that, and we're definitely excited for you to do that. Yeah, what I was going to say, my next question was like, does your mom speak French because you're going to go to Paris? So now you have to learn that language.
Well, my mom, she tried to learn French a long time ago before we even knew, I was going to be here. But and we've kind of been making that joke, like, okay, Mom, you gotta bring this to the table now. It's your turn to learn the language and be the translator. So I would not be surprised because of just my mom. My mom's very smart and she's so supportive. I would not be surprised if in 3 years she surprised me and said, hey, I am fluent in French now. I can be your translator. So yeah, that would be pretty funny.
And I'm going with you. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So what are some of the favorite parts of the Japanese culture for you? Like, what do you like about it?
Well, before I went, my dad kind of sat me down, like at dinner or something, and he was like, okay, so these are the things you can't do, and these are the things that you do and whatever. But in 2019, when we went, the one time I was really ever able to go out, it was like in between a game, like games or something, and he was able to take me to like a little restaurant down the street, and it was like the best food I've ever had. It was amazing, and we like took our shoes off and like sat on the ground. It was just a really cool experience, but the food is amazing, and kind of learning and seeing, like, you hear all the time about how populated Tokyo is and how many people there are, and you also hear about how it's very organized and you don't feel like there's chaos. So seeing that, like actually being able to see that when we would drive by in the buses and seeing people navigate the streets, and all at once there would be like 50 people crossing the street and then cars would be speeding by. It was just really cool to see how they like navigate, just day-to-day things that you wouldn't think are interesting. But I mean, just learning about the way they live their lives and, the history of Japan it's so interesting to me. It's like, it's something I genuinely just like love hearing and learning about, especially from someone who I'm so close with. Like my dad, I mean, we talk every single day and he is always, telling me stories about his time in Japan. And so it's just like so interesting to me.
Yeah, it is really, that is so fascinating. That's really insightful too, to think about just like the way, the movement of the population and the people there. That's really cool. It's kind of, equal time, appreciation for the past, but also for the present. That's really great. Other questions? Yeah. And Annie too, we also want to, we have a wide range of kind of experts in different topics on here too. If you had any questions about Linfield, we would be happy to take any questions you have. And we're all here too. If you like, it doesn't have to be right now, it could be anytime, but we are super excited that you're here.
Yeah, me too. I mean, this is just something I'm super excited about. It's like kind of the first thing I've done that's, not volleyball related.
Yeah.
And I really want to like get involved in things and, be a part of programs and just kind of like make a different life for myself here, which is, something I've been really excited to be able to do. Because originally I didn't know if I was going to continue with sitting volleyball when I got here, because I knew it would be really difficult. So kind of being able to have, my own life and like something different is something I've been super excited about. So I really do want to, once things like settle, I want to, try and get involved in a bunch of things and, kind of try and find some things that could maybe, be my new passion. But
absolutely. Yeah. Jane, I saw you come on mute.
I was just going to echo what you said, Natalie. You kind of have a brain trust here, Annie, of like all the resources across campus, because we have like, you got Dean of Students here, you got IPO here, you got Debbie from the President's Office, you got coaches on here. So if there was anything that you missed during orientation that you wanted to ask, like, how does this work? How can I find this? This is a really great audience to ask.
Yeah, I feel like you guys are all great, and I love all the questions. I appreciate you guys just, being interested in supporting me, because this has been amazing. And I definitely feel like I've got a group of people here who cares about, my success. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah. And Wendy says we have some students from Japan on campus too, if you want to meet them. So that we should definitely get that organized. That would be great.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. And Wendy, is that kind of like, would that be maybe a tea hour event?
You could come to the International Tea Hour. We have one student who actually has to meet with conversation partners. So yeah, and some people are just, they're not in the program, the English language program anymore. They're just in their regular classes. We have a few students too. So yeah, it'd be great to get together.
Yeah, I'd love to do that.
Yeah, I think this is just another great opportunity for Linfield to, we talk about, serving a diverse student group, and I think we do really want to provide that, and like you said, create a space for you to find a life here. So that's really exciting, and so glad to see all the students on too, and I'm sure hopefully we'll be able to get to meet some of them too in person, and with their masks on for now, but hopefully not too much longer. We all have our fingers crossed for that. But we're almost at 1 o'clock, and I'll just wait another second or so if anyone wants to pop any other questions in. Feel free if you want to throw them in the chat. But this has been great. It's just super insightful. And I'll let me grab that link to Kate's story, because it was I thought that was really well done.
While you're doing that, thank you for Wendy for the International Tea Hour information. I love going to those; they're so fun. So that's nice for that invitation. And then also, just wanted to put this out that we're really excited to be able to celebrate with you, Annie, your accomplishments. And so Annie will be at our volleyball game on October 13th. So come out and watch some volleyball, and give her a round of applause. And then she'll also be celebrated during our homecoming game on October 9th. So we get a lot of Annie, which is great.
as it should be, as we should be. Yeah, I kind of want to try sitting volleyball too. I'm kind of interested.
I think everyone should at least try it.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna try and find the link to our gold medal match and then post it in the chat.
That'd be great.
Interested, because and I think that would definitely hopefully get people to want to try the sport, and maybe we could do something here, like a clinic or something. And I could maybe see if some of my teammates could come out, because they would definitely love that. But
yeah, we would love to do that. Great.
While you're looking that up, Andy, you want to say anything?
Yeah, so next week will be led by myself and Keaton. We're not fully set on the topic yet, but that will come out in the next couple of days. And so, yeah, we'll have more information on that, but look forward to next week, and hopefully it'll be another great conversation.
Yeah, I know we're also thinking about we're super excited to have Andy and Keaton helping out. We're talking about getting other student clubs and student groups on campus, the ability to lead sessions. I'm not sure where we were exactly with we definitely wanted to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month, though, as it's ongoing for the next couple of weeks. So that was something we wanted to be sure to celebrate too. And I see Abby's on here too, so we'll have to be sure to connect. So for people who haven't met Abby Thomas, I'm going to shout her out. She's our new DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. I always forget what officer. You know how titles are, but she has been really great. We've been great to get to collaborate with her, and she's just doing some amazing work working with our student groups, and just helping to provide more opportunities and more chances to connect and have these kind of meaningful conversations. So we're super excited about it. Awesome. I'm seeing some YouTube links. Great stuff.
Thanks for the shout out. Sorry to interrupt. Just
No,
to
you're great.
Lula's gonna do their WildX on the 15th, which precedes the Hispanic Heritage Celebration on the following Sunday, the 17th. So please come out to that. Dancers are preparing. We're gonna have Aztecs dancers. We're gonna have mariachi. We're gonna have food from tons of different cuisines. It's gonna be really big. And then the Friday before, they're gonna sort of go into the histories and backgrounds of some of these things, as well as talk about like the first gen experience for Latinx students at Linfield. So thanks for mentioning me. I'll plug that real quick.
Yes, perfect. Yes, I cannot wait. That's going to be really great. I'm super excited. I hope we have some great fall weather for that too. Yeah, it's going to be a great weekend. That's family weekend, right, Debbie? So we got homecoming next weekend and then family weekend right after. So we got an exciting month ahead of us for sure. Well, I appreciate everyone joining today, and yeah, we'll definitely Annie will share with you once we get the YouTube link posted. We'll share it with you so you can share it with folks too. And if anybody's interested, just shoot an email over to any of us, and we're happy to provide the link and share with everyone. But thank you again, Annie. It's pretty historic for us to have a gold medalist on WildX, so we're very thankful and just excited for you and your journey here at Linfield. So and thanks everybody for joining. Hope you have a great weekend.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, and as Jane threw in the chat too, if anyone has any ideas or wants to lead a WildX, you can just email wildx@linfield.edu. We're always open to providing the space for people to have these conversations. So have a great weekend, everybody, and a safe fall break for those of you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys so much. This has been so fun, and I just appreciate you guys making the time to do this. So.
Oh yeah, I was
Well, very
so
proud
excited
of
when
you.
you said
Pretty
you
awesome.
could join. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had no
All right.
idea of the family history. That's really exciting.
Oh yeah, I'm the 9th one. The last one, but
That's a power legacy. That's great.
yeah,
Probably won't be the last one.
probably not, honestly.
Yeah.
Not for a while, but
Not for a while.
Yeah, we'll wait.
someday probably.
Absolutely.
I
Take
won't
care.
be here though.
Have a good weekend, everyone.
See ya.